Welcome back, guys, to another episode of PB Ballers in collaboration with Fighting Stripes Football. I'm your host, Albert, joined by Paul. It's been a while since we've done one of these videos, a bit of a long international break, but we're back. Hong Myung-bo has released his squad for the March qualifiers against Oman and Jordan. Let's start, I guess, with the goalies, the keepers. Three names he called up. They're going to be Cho Yeon-woo from Ulsan Hyundai. I think we all know he's the starter for now. Lee Chang-gun from Daejeon Hana Citizen. And interesting, from Kimcheon Sangmu, Kim Dong-hyun. First call-up, wasn't expecting that name. What do you think when you saw these keepers?
Choyonu kind of he's coming back from an injury, right? So I think he's gonna be wearing a mask most likely. I think there was a little bit of desperation either from the player's perspective or even from the team's perspective because we can't go into this without at least one of the, if not Choyonu, if not Kim Seung-gyu. I'm surprised, Son Bom-gun didn't get hauled up, and who's the guy over at DC right now? A lot of people were clamoring for him to get called up. I know.
Kim Jun-hong?
Yeah, to get a shot, but he didn't. So, it's good to at least have Choyunu there as far as like a recognizable name and someone who's got a bit of a reputation of playing well in these kind of things. So, I don't know much of the other two, to be honest with you. I'm sure Hong Myung-bo probably did a little bit of research, hopefully, in selecting those other two, and hopefully they get some good experience from this.
Cho Yeon-woo is the undisputed starter for now, and that's fine. Kim Seung-gyu, I believe, tore his ACL again, so his career is in pretty big jeopardy. Lee Chang-gun has been called up before to the national team. He's been playing well relatively for Daejeon Hana in recent years, so I don't mind him maybe as the second or third choice. But the Kim Dong-hyun call-up is I'm really kind of questioning. I know he's playing decently for Kimcheon Sangmu from what I've heard, but I mean, like, there were some other guys deserving. Kim Jin-hong, the guy at DC United that you mentioned, has actually been playing pretty well behind a porous DC United defense. I think a lot of scouts in the South Korean community think that Kim Jun-hong is the heir apparent to be the number one keeper of the KNT after Choi Yeon-woo retires. I know our excellent scout Trey raves about Kim. So I don't know why Hong Myung-bo didn't call him up.
Do you think maybe it's because their season just started?
You actually bring up a good point because these qualifiers that we're playing are going to be in the middle of a week where Kim Jun-hong has MLS games. So I think Hong Myung-bo is probably thinking that he doesn't want to disrupt it. In which case, I understand and I respect it because I think Cho Yeon-woo is the number one for now. The fact that he has a mask makes me a little wary, and I think that we could possibly upgrade on him, even though he's been a good servant. But I like you, I can't really have too much beef with these keepers, just because at the end of the day, I think the one who plays is all that really matters. Let's move to the defenders. Paul, you want to take that one?
Sure. We got the usual suspects here, and some new fullbacks that I'm not too aware of, but we have Kwon Kyung-won, we have Kim Min-jae, we have Park Seung-wook, So Ryung-woo, Lee Tae-seok, Jung Seung-yeon, Jo Yoo-min, Jo Yeon-taek, and Hwang Jae-won, which I'm very excited to see that.
Mostly usual suspects here. We know Kim Min-jae is going to start in the center of that defense. It seems like Hong has decided on Cho Yoo-min as his partner for now, especially from what we saw in the last few games. And I think So Ryung-woo has pretty much nailed down either that left back or right back spot. The question is, who does Hong play either on the left side or the right side? Personally, I think I'd like to see Hwang Jae-won get another start on the right side and move Seol to the left. I think he's a lot better cutting in as an inverted fullback than he is on his strong side. There were some issues, I think, with these selections that I've seen, especially on X. Lee Tae-seok is a decent player, but I think defensively he's quite porous. Park Seung-wook has been okay for Kimcheon Sangmu. I've heard he hasn't even been their best defender. You know, you're missing other names like Kim Ju-sung, right, who's been playing pretty damn well in the K-League from what I've been hearing. Other names that, you could have maybe called up include Chejun. I think he's been a decent player as well. Maybe I'm grasping at straws, but there's a lack of creativity. Let me please say, if there's anything I can actually complain about, it's the Chung Seung-yeon call-up again. I have no idea what that guy is doing on the national team. He played under Klinsmann, so I guess other coaches saw something under him as well, but I'm telling you, man, Hong Myung-bo...
I'm not a fan, yeah.
Yeah, Hong Myung-bo ain't winning points for creativity, man.
No. I do have a question in regards to Kim Min-jae, since you watch Bayern so closely. I know he has a bit of an ankle and Achilles issue right now. Do you see that preventing him from starting any of these matches, or is Hong just going to roll him out there?
I mean, if it was me, I wouldn't start him because
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
want to save his legs. But I think physically he's fine to start. He started the first leg game against Leverkusen. He'll be fit for that game. The second leg of that fixture as well. So I think he's relatively healthy. From what I've been hearing, it's that Min-jae has somewhat of a chronic ankle,
Mm.
foot leg issue. So I think he's always going to have issues there. I am quite worried about him as he ages, especially into his 30s. Maybe he's being overworked by both Bayern and the national team. But to answer the question, he is healthy. It's just I don't think I would start him against these lowly teams, and I think that other center backs deserve a chance while he rests.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the Soryong left back bandwagon for the longest. Again, he's not a speedy guy, so he's not going to be very good at creating width on the right side if he plays there. And as we all know, we have Lee Kang-in as a right winger, and having two slow guys on the flank isn't the best combination. So I really do prefer sort of kind of like an underlapping type of role here on the left side. You're right though. On the right side, Hwang Jae-won is the one I would want to see the most. I think he has the most potential out of the people I've seen. I've seen a little bit of Park Sung-ho because he got called up before too, right? I think I've seen him play a couple times and I wasn't overly impressed. And Lee Tae-seok, like you said, still young. Physically, I think still kind of smaller. Maybe a little better going forward, but like you said, defensively, he's kind of a risk. So it'll be interesting to see what approach Hong Myung-bo takes, whether he wants to, focus on the defensive end or being more stable, or if he wants to push bodies forward. So I'll be very interested to see who he puts there, opposite of Soryong, whether he's on the left or the right. I think that's going to be a big question mark, along with one other position in the midfield that we'll probably talk about here soon.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it right now. Let's go to the midfielders. No surprise, Son Heung-min called up again, captain of the national team. Lee Jae-sung called up, having a great season at Mainz. Last year they were flirting with relegation. Now they're pretty much like almost a complete 180, and Chae-sung's been a huge part of that. I think it was great to see. Hwang Hee-chan called up again. Hasn't been playing much. Honestly, a nightmare season for him, but he's still there. Now this one's really interesting. Hwang In-beom plays in Feyenoord in the Dutch league. Been injured for a bit. I think Van Persie told the media that this was a Korea decision to call him up, and Hong Myung-bo, I think, told the press that he should be fit enough to start, which is kind of weird because if the homie wasn't fit enough to start for his club team, he's getting called up right now and he's going to play. I'm not sure how happy the Dutch management will be. But anyway, obviously we have Lee Kang-in, PSG maestro. Hasn't been playing that much lately, but we'll talk about that later. Park Sung-ho, who's been toiling away at Birmingham City, gets a call up. Park Yong-woo, God, we'll deal with that later. Lee Dong-kyung makes a surprise return after kind of failing in Europe. Now he's back. He's with the military team at Kimcheon Sangmu. Center,
He's been balling, right?
yeah, he's been balling
I've
from what
heard
I've
he's been
heard.
balling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Won Doo-jae, the CDM, is back. Pejino from Stoke City, Ji-sung from Swansea, Yang Hyun-jun from Celtic, Yang Min-hyeok, who is a Spurs player but is on loan to QPR right now. That is the midfield. A lot to get into. Paul, what do you want to talk about first?
I think the first one that comes to mind for me is Hwang Hee-chan. I think this call up doesn't make any sense. He's getting like zero playing time right now on a Wolves team that is close to being relegated. Even when he is playing, he hasn't been playing well. If you look up Hwang Hee-chan on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, it's not pretty. It's the fans are like done with him. They're like, we're moving on, and he gets called up. It's weird, and it's the timing of it is really funny when you think about it because Chung Mong-gyu Jr. is just coming off a win, a goal. He should have had an assist too. It was like barely offsides. I actually watched that whole match, and he was looking pretty good. He came in as a sub, I think, in like the 60th minute and made an immediate impact on when it was 1-1. And it's just funny that he's decided to like break through right then and there, right before the call-ups, and call up Hwang Hee-chan instead. That was a bit of a shocker. Park Young-woo, a lot like Chung Seung-yeon. I'm like, what? They just won't go away. They find their way back to the national team every time. It's nice to see Won Doo-jae, who's also a Fighting Stripes group chat legend. That's how I got introduced to this group chat. It was a Won Doo-jae compilation video saying he was the next, Ki Seung-young, that he's going to take over his role. he's the number 6 of the future, and obviously that didn't work out. So I do want to see him succeed just because we hyped him up so much. I know he's a little later into his career now. And then Paek Sung-ho, of course, that 6 role, that Hwang In-bum partner role is going to be really interesting as far as where they go with it. Lee Dong-kyung is a player that I've always respected and liked his game. The only thing wrong with Lee Dong-kyung, I'm not trying to hate on him here, but I just feel like he's almost like a Temu Lee Kang-in, where they offer very similar things, but Lee Kang-in is a little bit shiftier, a little bit more mobile, which is saying a lot because Lee Kang-in is not really a fast guy, but Lee Dong-kyung is pretty stationary with his, how he plays and what he brings to the table. But as a midfielder, I think Lee Dong-kyung could work out great. And he's just, like you pointed out, probably best in form here. But one person that I want to bring out here is Yang Hyun-jun, who's probably the most informed player that we have on this whole roster. So I'm really happy that he got called up. I just don't know if Hong Myung-bo would be ballsy enough to actually start him.
Yeah, so firstly, just addressing everything you said. Yeah, Hwang Hee-chan, man, I'm 29 years old. He's still relatively young, but I think at this point, the injuries have added up. You can't rely on him. You can basically put money on him missing at least 2-3 months in a season. And from what I've heard from people inside the KFA, it's that his body and his muscle state is at a point where he's just always going to be chronically injured. I'm actually more worried about his quality of life after football than really the rest of his football career. Been a good servant for the national team, lots of amazing memories and moments, but I think for the brother right now, it's time to either hang him up or go to a club where you can play well and regularly before you even think about the national team. Paek Sung-ho, I think he deserves a call because he's been playing well for Birmingham, albeit in a lower league. I'm not a fan of where he's at right there. Peck probably might start in the number 8 role, I think, because Hwang In-bum might not be fit enough to start right away. That could be interesting to see and see if Peck makes most of his opportunity. I think he hasn't really done that with the national team. I haven't really been impressed with him. Park Young-woo, like, what can I say, man? Just all around garbage midfielder. When I interviewed Klinsmann, I asked him, like Kevin asked him about Park Young-woo, and Jurgen didn't really give us a proper response. And it seems like Hong Myung-bo might feel the same way Jurgen does because he keeps selecting him. And right now, looking at the roster, I think Park Young-woo's going to start as the 6 in the 2 games we have.
You think it's just like a default situation where there's just really nobody else, so they just forced to call him up?
I guess. I mean, there was earlier. I think Park Jin-seop during the Asian Cup played pretty damn well.
Man, that's the name I wanted to bring up too.
He's kind of fallen off from what I've heard recently, but I think Kim Bong-soo, who played at Jeju, is also a guy who can play as a 6 and as a center back. He's also a decent player. So like there are options that he can try. It's just Hong Myung-bo is not creative enough to do that. Even the Lee Dong-kyung shout, man, he's already 27. Like I like him as a player. I think he's dangerous. But again, you're just recycling dudes who have washed out in Europe and hoping that just because they're balling out in the K-League that they're going to play well for the national team. I mean, again, there's nothing inspiring here. And I know maybe I'm asking a lot considering the quality of manager that we have, but like, there are better options here than the ones he picked. Won Doo-jae, like I would have called him up, but I don't think he's going to play much, maybe as a sub. Kwon Hyuk-kyu was another option as a 6 that he could have called up. I guess the props I'll give him is being smart enough to call up Yang Hyun-jun. Now, I wonder where he's going to play him. It might be a little controversial, but you and I have talked about this before. I think Yang Hyun-jun might actually be a pretty damn good right back instead of a winger.
Yeah, let's not forget Jurgen played him there for a little bit.
He did at the Asian Cup, right? In extra time against Australia, I believe. He had no choice, so we put him on as a right wing back kind of hybrid.
And he played well.
He played well, terrorized the Aussie defense down their right-hand side. So another like creative option, but again, like I said, I don't think Hong is going to do that. I think if he plays him, he's going to play as a traditional winger. Yang Min-hyeok, I like that call, obviously, because he's really young and he's the future. Again, I don't know how much he's going to play. Didn't get any minutes, I believe, in his last call-up either. So it's just like you can't really like torch Hong for these picks, but you can't really clap either and say, wow, like I'm inspired or these picks are going to, like the way he's selecting his team is going to make me feel confident about the 2026 World Cup because for me, it certainly doesn't. And I think if we want to address the one elephant in the room that might take up some time is Lee Kang-in. Where has he played him as a starter? Because he is going to start. Lee Jae-sung has been balling out at Mainz kind of as like an inside 10 almost. Knowing Hong Myung-bo, I think Lee Jae-sung is going to start as the 10 in this team, which means, again, that Lee Kang-in is going to play on the right wing. And if Seo Ryung-woo is behind him, Paul, like we've talked to depth about just the issues with that, right?
Well, I mean, the teams are preparing for it now. I started noticing it, I think, probably it wasn't the last time we had matches, but the time before that. I was starting to notice what teams were doing, and it made so much sense with what they're doing as far as how they're defending him. Basically, putting two on him and then just forcing him right. Like, go ahead, go down that sideline. Let's see what you got. And that's probably the most uncomfortable movement for him as a left foot dominant player who's not fast to try to go straight line down the sideline. And when you have a underlapping fullback like Soryong behind him, like how is that going to mesh? It's just not going to work, right? You need someone shifty like a Yang Yeonjun, as you brought up. You watch PSG. Anytime Lee Gang-in plays with Hakimi, it's lights out because they can't guard both. Because when Hakimi is bombing down that sideline, they have to respect that, right? So that opens up Lee Gang-in on the inside cut to the left, and then now defenders are backpedaling and in trouble, and that opens up space for Lee Gang-in to do his thing. But if you've watched the last few Korea matches, it's just him being double teamed, having nowhere to go, and just turning back around and just passing it. Now things have kind of worked out a little bit because it's opened up the other side of the field because of how teams are defending that. But we shouldn't have to rely on that to be our offensive strategy. Oh, let Lee Gang-in get trapped, and we have to find other ways. And to save him as far as his potential to affect and impact the KNT is we need to give him a speedy guy to play with on the right-hand side. And whether that's Yang Yeonjun, I don't know how fast Hwang Jae-won is. I never really didn't look at Blazer to me, but Yang Yeonjun seems to fit that mold kind of perfectly as far as what we need. So it would be great to see that, but I just don't see him doing that. Now, if we don't do that, then there's always the option of putting Lee Gang-in into the midfield, which then obviously, there's a snowball effect with the other players in those positions, like you mentioned, Lee Hong and playing in that position already, and then Hwang In-bom there, and then having a six behind that. But I've always wanted to try to experiment with those three that I've just mentioned as a midfield. That would have to obviously drop Lee Jae-sung back a little bit more as like a double pivot, I guess, with Hwang In-bom, and then kind of shoot Lee Gang-in as a 10. I'd love to see that at least one of these games, just to see how it works out for him in the midfield. Because again, putting Soryong with him on the right, it's not working with how teams are preparing right now for him.
1000% agree. If I was the coach, I would either play Yang Yeonjun or Hwang Jae-won as right back, and then I put Yang Min-hyeok as the right winger, and I put Lee Gang-in in the middle.
Yeah.
But again, we'll see what Hong does. I don't think he'll do that. And again, it's just the same old problems that we've had before. No recognizable number 6, a decent number of attacking midfielders, good quality on the left-hand side, I think, a lack of quality on the right side, or at least some uncertainty. And then we move to the number 9 position, where he's called up 3 players. The 3 strikers that he's called up are Oh Hyung-gyu from Genk, Chung Mong-gyu from Daejeon Hana Citizen, and Oh Se-hoon is playing over in Japan. I mean, like, for me, when I first saw this, I think from what I remember, Oh Hyung-gyu has slowed down a bit since having a pretty hot start with Genk. I'd still
Yeah,
call him.
he's like a last minute sub guy, like basically like
Yeah,
the 85th minute, but he's scoring a lot somehow still.
yeah. I mean, he's a
It's kind of
useful
interesting.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a useful
He's
player. I call him up.
kind of a PK merchant at the moment.
A
If I'm
bit.
being honest, I'm going, oh, he scored, and then I look and it's a penalty.
Yeah.
So it's tough to judge his like overall game when all you see is spot kicks like in the 87th minute, instead of like his overall game as far as how he's impacting it. But as most people know by now, Cho Gyu-sung and his mysterious injury that's prolonged here for about, I don't even know, half a year now. I mean, that was supposed to be like a 2-month thing or something like that max, and somehow it's delayed into 2025, and it's really, I don't know if it's jeopardizing his career as a whole or what's going on with that injury, but you take his name off the list, and I don't know how many other people we possibly have. Who's that other guy over at Grasshopper who started off out and completely just fell off?
Lee Young-jun.
Yes. What happened? I haven't heard squat about him since like he scored 2 goals in the first 4 games and it just disappeared. So we're kind of in that situation with like almost like our number 6 where this is what we got.
For the number 9 call-ups, I really can't give Hong too much crap for it because there just aren't
Yep.
a lot of good options. Chu Ming-gyu actually has been playing well to start the K-League season, but I think we all know what he has to offer, and it's quite limited. Not a very mobile player, a bit static, very statuesque.
Yep.
Oh Se-hoon has played well when he was called up for the KNT recently, but I don't think he's been doing that well in Japan in recent matches. And like you said, Oh Hyung-gyu has been more of a super sub at Belgium and being a bit of a penalty merchant. And then, our boy Cho Gyu-sung, it looks like, honestly, unfortunately, it could be a career-threatening injury. Seems like, he had surgery, I think, to fix something like, I think it was something like a torn meniscus in his knee. Experienced complications for that, and I think he's still either in Denmark or he's back in Korea trying to rehab. But I don't know. It looks like a injury that I think could really impact the rest of his
No, because
career.
Hong Myung-bo
Unfortunately,
said he's not even close to being
yeah, he's
in shape for competitive matches
yeah.
right now.
So
So it's like that's concerning.
it sounds bad. And
Yeah.
honestly, given the lack of good striking options, if I was Hong, I might have only just called up one or two strikers and then just called up an extra midfielder maybe.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, looking at the strikers that we got, I couldn't blame Hong Myung-bo for starting Ju in the first game if he wanted. Also could see him starting Seun as well. I think Hyunggi's better probably off the bench. So
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a situation where we could employ a false nine. Again, I don't know if Hong Myung-bo wants to do that, but I guess
He
as
could
we
throw
wrap,
Gang in as a false nine.
he could. I guess as we wrap up the video, Paul, you want to do a little prediction on the starting 11 we're going to see in the first match. I believe the first match we're going to play is against
Man.
Oman.
Is this what I think Hong's gonna start, or is this what I want to start? That's
You can give you do what you want to start because I think we know what Hong's going to start. So
okay. Well, Choi Eun-woo is definitely starting. Okay, let's get that out of the way. And then we have Kim Min-jae and Choi Eun-min partnership. That's proven to be pretty good here, at least as of late. So I think it's pretty obvious to stick with that. Then you stick Seo Ryung-woo on the left side, and then on the right side, I'm gonna go with Yang Hyun-jun. I'm just gonna do it. Let's go ahead and do that. And then what we're gonna do in the midfield is we're gonna stick with. You know what? I don't think, even though they say he's healthy enough, I don't think Hwang Im-bom's gonna play in that first game. I think we're gonna rest him and then probably try to save him for the second game. So I want to see Lee Kang-in, Lee Jae-sung, and Baek Sung-ho is what I want to see in the midfield, right? And then up top, I'm gonna get killed for this, but I do want to see Yang Min-hyeok on the right wing, and then Son Heung-min on the left, and then give me Oh Se-hoon on top. That's what I would like to see personally. Just from an entertainment perspective, as far as watching fun, entertaining football, I think that would be the most fun roster or most fun starting 11 to play.
fair, yeah, solid lineup. I think for me, I agree with you on the goalie. Only thing I would change in defense is I would swap out Yang Hyun-jun for Hwang Jae-won. I think I would start Hwang in the first half, and then maybe in the second half I throw Yang on there to see what they both offer. But besides that, our defenders are pretty much the same. In midfield, this is a little interesting because I thought about putting a number 6 like Won Du-jae in there, but then I would start Baek Sung-ho as kind of the more deeper player. I think he's earned that. And then I would play Lee Jae-sung as kind of my roving 8, and then I would play Lee Kang-in as my 10. And then my front three would be Son Heung-min on the left side. On the right side, I would start Yang Min-hyeok as well. I hate to copy you, but Yang Min-hyeok is going to play for me. And then in the middle, as my striker, give me Oh Hyung-gyu. I know he's been coming on a lot as a sub, but I think we kind of know what Oh Se-hoon brings. I think he's a high floor, kind of low ceiling type player, which is useful.
Yeah.
But I want to see how Oh does in kind of a more fluid front three, you could say, maybe.
He's definitely the best presser of the three, too. So I like the pressure that he brings on opposing teams. He kind of speeds up the game a lot, and creates turnovers, and I think that's good for us. I don't want to leave out one guy because we didn't even mention his name. I don't want to get fried by anybody for not saying him, but we didn't talk about Pejino at all. I know he's been having a rough season over at Stoke right now, but I could see him playing a little bit, especially if we grab an early lead or a big enough lead to where Son can rest, because we all know that he needs it. So if that were to happen and we have like a 2-3 goal lead, I wouldn't be surprised to see Pejino come on for him on the left side too.
Pejino, I think, would be one of my first subs off the bench, to be honest, for that left or right side. And then I know Ji-sung's been playing pretty well for Swansea recently, so I'd also give him a look. But
realistically speaking, I don't think Yang Min-hyeok's gonna play. The way
Probably.
that Hong Myung-bo talked about him, he's like, oh yeah, because we didn't bring it up, but we selected 28 guys, so not everyone's gonna be able to dress. But he was like, yeah, Young Min-hyuk, he's young, he still has a lot to develop. It kind of made it seem like he was saying he's not gonna get any playing time, but we kind of want to see where he's at type of thing. So
Yeah,
I
no,
highly doubt he's gonna play, personally speaking.
he'll be lucky to get like 3 minutes off the bench in injury
Yeah,
time.
or even onto the team maybe. So he's really young, still physically developing. I think we do have a much better chance of seeing a Yang Yeon-jun or a Pigeonal or a Ji-sung.
Yeah, and I guess to kind of wrap up, guys, we try not to overreact to one game. Again, this is a World Cup qualifier that we should already have wrapped up. No disrespect to these two teams, but we're clearly levels above them. Whether we win super convincingly or whether we scrape by, I'm not gonna hopefully be too dramatic about it because I think that right now we have a coach who is decent but isn't good enough to get us to where we want to be, and I think the bar with him is probably the round of 16. So for me, I just predict business as usual. Maybe a 3-0, 4-0 win against Oman. Even against Jordan, I could see us, drawing that game, realistically speaking. And from what maybe I'm being pessimistic, but I expect to see the same old lineup. Seo Young-woo on the right side, Lee Jae-sung in the middle, Lee Kang-in on the right, Song Heung-min on the left, and one of Chung Mong-gyu or Oh-seon starting as the striker. I don't want to be pessimistic because we got a year into the World Cup, but I really was very optimistic with this team after the 2022 World Cup. But right now, just the management, both the corporate suites and also on the bench has not been good. And again, if we win both these games, I'll be happy, but I'm not gonna deviate from
No.
kind of the main points we've been making on this channel. And if there's anything you want to wrap
It's not
up,
going to really mean anything in the long run, winning these two games. It's games that we should win, and I don't think we'll win with style. It's not going to be pretty. The way we've been playing, at least the last few matches here, hasn't been great. Let's be honest. So there's been a lot of duds. That draw against Palestine, stuff like that. There's been a lot of things that that hasn't worked in Hong Myung-bo's favor, at least until this point. And he has to find a way to properly kind of open up the offense, I feel like, and put our guys in, advantageous situations a little bit more. It's funny because in his press conference, he was bringing up things about being more attacking and direct. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's see if he actually just doesn't talk about it, but actually does something about it. So I'm interested to see if we look any different, at least from a tactic standpoint. I don't really expect much, but who knows? Maybe he'll surprise us. It's been 4 months. He's had some time, so.
one big thing we got to talk about before we end the video, guys, that happened before, in between the last time we published. Surprise, Chung Mong-gyu has been reelected as head of the KFA to a record 4th term. It's going to be another 4-year term, basically unprecedented. We've never had somebody run the KFA for 4 damn terms. He's on his FDR arc. I mean, Paul, when you saw that, man, what was your first reaction? Because
the shrug emoji. Really, it's just like you're not gonna win. It feels like it's just a complete uphill battle that's just not winnable. And I feel like we've had so many breaking news. They're gonna do this. They're gonna investigate all this, and there's been so much disappointment with how the proceedings have gone. With all this voting, I don't even know who's voting for this, or if we have no idea how any of this works. We just wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, he's just been reelected. He's fine. He's got 80% of the votes," and you're just like, "How is this possible? With everything that's going on recently, how is he getting these votes?" And how much money is involved, how much power is involved here. I just throw my hands in the air and just go, you know what? At this point, the government's trying to get involved. If that's not going to work, then nothing is. At this point, there's no way.
And there were 2 high-profile challengers. You had Heo Jung-moo, who coached the national team in 2010, and then you had Shin Mun-sun, who's a former player and television commentator. But like you said, Chung won 156 out of 183 votes. It goes to question whether or not this is just him currying favor. Like how much is he bribing these people that vote? It probably is. He just has his friends voting, and it's a rigged system where it's almost like one of those elections in North Korea or Russia where they're technically an election, but
they're not.
Yeah, there's not. It's all for show. So I think that we're reached that point right now because he's won a 4th term, which I've never heard of somebody staying on for 4 terms. especially as the head of a football association. So, and honestly, the sad thing is he's relatively young too. The man's 63 years old, so he could be around for at least 15 more years, I feel like, if he really wanted, given how long people live now. But again, it just kind of shows the direction of Korean football and where it's going, and not just the state of the national team and the players, but just, what's going on upstairs. It really is depressing, and maybe, I guess, as time goes on, Jason and others on our channel will talk more about the long-term ramifications of this. But for now, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this roster reaction. We're going to have match recaps for both the upcoming qualifiers coming up. Until then, stay safe. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.